both board members and two group representatives from two groups that want to give presentations this morning. So with that, I will say this is the July 25th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Public Works for the town of Dartmouth. This meeting is being recorded. It's a virtual meeting. It's being held on Zoom. We'll now have a roll call. Mr. Alves?
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle?
Here.
The chairman, Mr. Almy, is here, so all members are in attendance. Our first item on the agenda is to approve and accept warrants. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve and accept the warrants for bills payable period ending June 17, 24, July 1 and 8 of 2024.
Motion by Mr. LaBelle. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Alves. All in favor? Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Mr. Alves?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Warrants are approved. Next item is approve and accept payrolls.
Motion to approve and accept the payrolls for weeks ending June 22nd and 29th and July 6th and 13 of 2024.
Motion by Mr. LaBelle to accept payrolls. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Alves. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Alves?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Payrolls are approved. Next item is to approve and accept meeting minutes from June 20th, 2024. Do I have any discussion?
I do not.
I was not there, but.
All right. I have two minor changes on page 3. Item titled Approval FY25 Utility Rate. On the third line down that begins Mr. Rollins stated.
Yes.
It should read, Mr. Rollins stated the meeting went very well and there weren't any suggested changes to the rates, period. So that would replace the second half of that sentence.
Got it.
The next change under the last 2-line paragraph of that, I'm sorry, 2 paragraphs down, 2 lines, says based on the rate study, Mr. Barber then recommended the 8.5% sewer rate increase for FY 2025. The next sentence should be replaced with a sentence that reads, it brings the estimated retained earnings up a bit for the first year. Okay.
Okay.
All right. With those suggested changes, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion
Mr.
to
LaBelle.
approve and accept the meeting minutes from June 20, 2024 with the stipulated changes as discussed.
All right. Motion by Mr. LaBelle. The chair will second. All in favor, Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle votes aye. Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. Next item is water under old business is water and sewer abatement application revision. This is a revision to a form. Mr. Barber, do you expect this to take any time at all?
No, I do not. So
All right, let's go through it then before our first presentation.
the previous form that was approved had the signature lines for all 3 board members to sign after approving any abatements at a board meeting. After looking at this and discussing it with the water superintendent, we thought that the board could authorize me as a director or just the director of public works to sign on their behalf after a vote of the meeting. Or if they'd rather, they could have a single board member sign, but having the 3 board members sign was I think just not efficient for that.
Board members, any discussion?
No.
No.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the change?
Motion to approve the changed application for abatement of sewer and water.
Mr. LaBelle moves change to the abatement form. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Alves. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Alves?
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle votes aye. Mr. Alves votes aye. Chair votes aye. Change is approved. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by the Dartmouth Tree Committee regarding discussion of a tree bylaw. Ms. Langhauser, is that something that you will present?
Yes, but it'll be introduced by Ann Parsons,
All right,
who's also here.
Okay.
If I can share my screen. Which means that I have to go over here to share my screen. Excuse me. Still early in the morning for me. I don't know how you guys do this. Where's
quite a
sharing?
coffee.
Espresso first thing.
There's not enough coffee in the world. I don't know what you guys think. There we are, share. Okay.
This is pretty typical for a public works department. Everyone I've ever known is some of it starts at 6, so it could be worse.
Mhm.
Well, that's why I worked in the planning department.
Okay,
All right,
so we
excellent.
have, you're able to share your screen, so.
There we go. Okay, go ahead, Ann. Do you mind if
All
Ann
right,
Parsons starts?
No, not at all, please.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good
So,
morning.
our Dartmouth Tree Committee has unanimously approved recommendations provided by our bylaw subcommittee. And we're here because we hope to review the bylaws recommendations with you and get your support so we can move forward to try and get the bylaw approved. The first slide, please.
I've got it. Which one do you want?
The background,
Yeah,
the
got
very
it.
first. I mean, this is very easy. We were appointed November 2022. I think you all know why we were formed. It's right there. Loss of tree canopy is a big deal, but decline of number and health of trees. That is our mission, basically to protect, plant, and care for trees and also raise awareness. Okay, next slide. Why a local tree bylaw? It's all right there at the top, especially climate change, storm runoff. There's just a lot of reasons to encourage the protection of trees and also to expand on Chapter 87, the Massachusetts General Law is very narrow and can be added to. So Andrea, why don't you take it on from there?
Sure. The reason we came back today is because we listened to what you had to say at the last meeting on this project, and the bylaw subcommittee changed its recommendations relative to what we were hearing, and the tree committee itself has actually conceptually approved the recommendations we have here, and we've brought them to the select board with the go-ahead to prepare a draft bylaw for town meeting review. But before we get before we present the actual words of the draft bylaw, we wanted to go through the recommendations with you because the board of the Department of Public Works, the Board of Public Works is really where the implementation of any tree committee is going to happen. So we don't want to be presumptuous and suggest that you can do something. We want to get your feedback on how best to implement as strong a bylaw as we can reasonably put forward, recognizing that Dartmouth has never had a local tree bylaw. So you are working right now under Mass General Law Chapter 87, and I just want to go through this just to get your head into tree bylaws. The tree warden is Tim, and he's responsible, along with everything else, for managing the shade trees within the public way. And shade trees have a definition as all trees. Setback trees that are planted within 20 feet of a public way get the protections in the town, of the state bylaw for, or the state law for same protections as a as a public shade tree. Permits are required to cut, trim, or remove shade trees, and with the exceptions of pests and nuisance trees and hazardous trees. And you're familiar with needing to do a hearing if by the Board of Public Works before the removal is issued. And you understand that utilities couldn't possibly come forward for every tree that they manage in the right of way. So they have an annual vegetated bylaw, and there is a state fine, which I think you've used at least in one instance, where it's $500 per tree for removing public trees without a permit. These are these are the key issues. Then since we've spoken with you, we've done the research of looking at all the other towns that we could find, and states and cities in Massachusetts. There's no comprehensive list, but we've worked with the Department of Conservation and Recreation to come up with, we looked at about 50 or so towns, and there's about, I don't remember, about maybe 30 that have bylaws. And so we didn't pick, we're coming back to you, not with what we think is the best, but what we think we could pass in town meeting. So the first thing is that the definition of a public shade tree is really broad. It's all trees. And that gets complicated fast in interpretation. So we'd like to clarify that that's any part of a trunk within the public way. We would also like to expand it to include larger trees that set off of the public way, but have a large enough canopy that the drip line, the edge of the leaves, extend over the pavement. I don't know, Mr. Almay, if you'd like to talk about each proposal, or if you'd like to go through this and then come back at the end.
I think,
Board-
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Board members, do you have a preference?
I think I'd just like to hear everyone's
Okay.
comments, not our comments, but the presentation first. Is fine with me, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Alves?
I'm okay with that.
All right,
Okay.
please continue.
Sure. Okay. So we'd like to expand the public shade tree to include the drip line of adjacent trees. Setback trees we spoke of, they're any trees within 20 feet that the state law allows the town to plant within 20 feet with the written permission of the property owner. What we'd like to say is that under those conditions, the tree should become a public resource. That tree, as long as the owner has permission and the tree warden was part of the process, that then becomes a tree that any management of has to be reviewed by the tree warden. The tree, right now, you issue a permit for the cutting, removal, trimming of public shade trees, with the exceptions of pests and hazardous trees that need to be addressed rather rapidly. We'd like to obviously continue that, but also include what I just said is the same protections on a setback tree. And then we'd like to, if there's nothing in the state that says that if you plant on public land, you have to get review of the tree warden. We'd like to allow the public to plant in the right of way, or more probably better in the setback area, but go through the tree warden when they suggest doing that. Whether or not we say town land, meaning, parks and schools and town forest. That's, you know, certainly, it could just say right of way. It could be that we can talk to that. We also want to include a trigger on building permit reviews for what we'd call major construction, and would define this: the demolition of a house, a property, a major construction, as in 50% expansion of a property or a footprint, or new construction, and would like to end excavation activities into the lot. Would like to define this as those construction sites that aren't already covered by site plan review and subdivision review through the planning board. But so these would be individual lots. These are sometimes called infill lots. So in existing neighborhoods, and lots that get approved through the planning board, called an approval not required process. They don't have any reviews on them now. So it's a smaller subset of all reviews, assuming that the subdivision and site plan review already had the tree wardens input. This ability to engage the tree warden would be done through the electronic building permit application, which can be triggered with an electronic flow chart to automatically ask for comments of the tree warden. And we would have to speak to the level of information the tree warden would need in the application in order for him to make substantive comments. Whether or not we have to do that level of detail in the bylaw or in a manual is, you know, up for debate. So that's the permit, probably the most interesting to you. Tree fund, we've gotten really great feedback on establishing a dedicated fund to be used solely for the care and management of trees. Right now, any fines you levy against the state, violations of the state tree fund, state tree law, go into the general budget. Would like to grab those funds, those penalties, and put them into a tree fund, along with any private donations. And Anne has been wonderful in getting private donations. And remediation payments, which is we've referred to, I think, in the permit, rather than just cut down. Right now, you cut down the tree, and that's the end of it. But would like to have a replacement tree or funds for that replacement tree. Is that number? Did I put that in the? That was, oh, how did I get by that? Require measures to protect trees and replant. This is what we gave the select board. We were vague on what that meant. We were really looking for feedback, because there's been a lot of range of, we absolutely think it's valuable that when you take down a tree, you should replant. And there's been a range of what replanting is, because often along the right of way, and even the setback trees, they tend to be, they're mature trees. So when you replace with a 3-inch tree, you're really not replacing the value, the community value that you get from a 12-inch or 36-inch tree. So we'd like to have there be replanting, and would like to put out the amount of a replacement as low as stem for stem, plant one tree for one tree lost, or what we'd like to do is replace the diameter lost, either by replanting on the site or contributing to the tree fund. And would like your feedback on this, because you guys are the ones that are going to have to do it. And we would like to have your feedback. Local fines, your 500 per tree doesn't go very far. It doesn't replace the cost of replanting the tree. And we're suggesting that you should also have a local fine for any violations of the local bylaw, and that the fine would be not a large amount, but that each day after notice is a separate violation. This is standard, a standard process through the town has, and the state allows it's called non-criminal disposition authority. It's the ability to write tickets. And they are appealable, but every day is a separate fine. And like I said, I wouldn't recommend it be a high fine, but that a first offense is a fine. A second offense is higher. Multiple offenses is just rude and, should be higher still. But the point of having them be daily fines is that it gets their attention and gets them into compliance faster. And ultimately, we're trying to replant trees that are lost. So those are the 6 issues that we'd like to expand upon the state law on. And like I said, we've got some draft language, but we want to get your feedback to make sure we get something that's workable out of the gate. You did raise a question about planning board and, relation to them. I had an informal conversation with both the town planner, who is now former, and unfortunately didn't give me her feedback, and the chairman, and they're not interested in taking on this permit review. They feel that since the state law is already embedded with the authority of the tree warden, that it should be the tree warden that does it, and that we would complement the work of the planning board by staying out of things that they already do. Obviously, there's a connection in scenic bylaw, but that's something you can address if anybody raises it. So, what do you think? Are you all for a tree bylaw?
Board members, do you have any comments?
I think this is very well done. I would like an opportunity to read this over in my leisure time
Mm-hmm.
and then make some probably better thought out suggestions or comments.
Do you need the can you work off of these talking points?
This would be fine. Yes, it's
Terrific.
just listening to all of this, there's some questions that I have, but I just want to be able to read it, digest it, and then develop a set of questions and concerns that I may or may not have, and with comments.
Appreciate the thoughtful response.
Mr. LaBelle, would you be comfortable contacting some member or members of the tree committee directly ahead of any further discussions?
No, not at all. That would be fine.
All right. Mr. Alves, do you have any comments?
I do have some concerns just quickly, so I don't take up too much time. I mean, we can discuss this afterwards later. Setback to trees being on private property, I think that's a huge concern. How do you take on that responsibility, first and foremost, with the homeowner? Second is, if we're taking charge of being 20 feet back, kind of say like an easement, so to say, if it's a dead tree, then if I'm allowing you to plant trees on my property, then as a resident in town, if it's dead, then I'm going to come after the town to remove it accordingly. And if you look at that, that's a huge undertaking and cost expense to the town of Dartmouth. And being $500 fine on permits if caught, personnel trying to catch these people cutting trees illegally is a concern and a huge undertake as well. And, you know, there's a lot of issues with that because we're dealing with a lot of dead trees within the public way. So now you're looking at, okay, do you want, instead of a 40, 50, 60-foot layout, do you want an 80-foot layout? I don't think that's necessary all for trees, and I'm all for trees, believe me. But I deal in Mansfield with trees every day, and the impact of dead trees are a huge undertake to the town of Mansfield. So again, you gotta look at both scenarios, correct? And then, you know, in determining, you know, you're saying, and briefly here, I don't want to take up too much time, you know, determining that any part or any portion of the tree, depending upon where property lines fall, is on public or town property. That's another potential question mark on how you establish who owns the tree, first and foremost. But again, you gotta take that into consideration. As for site plan reviews, to the best of my knowledge, and I could be mistaken, that there's issues between planning, building, DPW, doing all their reviews and everybody working together. I could be wrong. Hopefully they're improving within the town of Dartmouth. That now we're gonna add this for reviews for, you know, the tree warden, and is everybody gonna work together on this is another question mark, in my opinion. And then, you know, if you find fines out there, or people doing things illegally, now you find them the first time and the second time, what happens if, you know, they don't pay the fine? So where does that do? You put a lien on their house, things of that nature come up into play. So again, this is just, you know, things real quick, and forgive me, I'm throwing a lot at you real quick, but I haven't had too much time to review this as well. But I do have some concerns. I think you have some great ideas with this, but big concerns as well. Just the undertaking, the manpower to do all this work.
I definitely anticipated those concerns, and appreciate your feedback. It's, you know, how it gets administered makes the bylaw successful. So we can work out the details, I think, or modify.
I have a question. Is Tim Barber here? I don't see his face. Tim, are you there somewhere?
I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes, now I can. Have you been over this, Tim, step by step? Have you had time to think about it?
I have. I have the kind of similar concerns as Rick stated. And you know, going a little bit further, and I stated this previously. Now, we don't have a designated budget line item for trees. So, you know, we work with trees in our operation budget, usually with highway, but we don't have a dedicated line item, which, you know, moving forward in the future, possibly for FY26, we can work on adding a budget for tree work, because, you know, this will add time, it'll add costs. I don't really recommend town personnel going on to private property to maintain trees, but so that would I guess require us to hire a private company to maintain any trees that were either setback trees or drip line trees to be maintained on private property. I know there's concerns where, you know, further back trees are on private property, you know, there's property concerns for owners, whether it's branches over a dwelling or any other structures, a pool, or a property that could create damage. So that does create some liability concerns as well. Regarding tree replacement, I do agree 100% with replacing a tree that's being removed, especially within the right of way. So if a property owner requests a tree to be removed that is live and healthy, for any reason, I think the replacement I would recommend is stem to stem because, you know, if it's a 100-foot lot and you remove a 24-inch diameter tree and say we're looking at $1,500 for a tree replacement or that being funded to an account. If you require the replacement for inch by inch, then that $1,500 becomes $12,000 to that resident, which is to remove a tree that can be pretty costly for somebody and unfeasible, or to replace that with, you know, eight 3-inch diameter trees on a 100-foot lot rather than that one tree. So I think that could be overbearing. Any permit reviews for properties that required, you know, tree protection on their lot, I think this would require the design plan, any site plans that are submitted to show all the existing trees in diameters of trees to, I think, to trigger that review of any trees that should be protected. Because without that, when we receive these reviews, we're not going out to the sites immediately to look at these sites. We're reviewing them on paper. So if they're not shown, then you know, that could be difficult to police. I think that's kind of all I have for now.
I wanted to ask a couple of questions. Tim, in terms of the tree fund, I am this fall going to try and work up a tree fund with Gary Carrero's instruction, and primarily for getting monies for an Adopt a Tree program. But you know, the personnel that you're thinking eventually of hiring, when do you expect to be able to do that? It does seem as though there needs to be a bottom line in the budget for trees. You know, the time has come for that. And when do you expect to be able to hire those people?
Well, we haven't even looked at hiring people for, you know, for tree work. I mean, we have you know, as far as inspection or review, but on the highway side, currently we have equipment, but we have laborers that do the tree work. And they, you know, they're certified to run the bucket truck and to do that work. So we would like to kind of create the positions which would raise their grade or step to a higher pay and more seniority in the department, to dedicate that crew to tree maintenance, because currently they're not dedicated to tree maintenance. If we need them for, you know, collecting trash or doing other construction work, we need to pull them off of any tree maintenance. And as Rick stated, you know, we're having the same issues here with a lot of dead trees in town and a lot of maintenance that, you know, we need a dedicated crew for. So we're going to be working with the highway department to get some job descriptions and submit it to the union and to the personnel department and see if we can create these positions, and possibly at that point we can hire or we can post those positions, and then we can hire new laborers to backfill, you know, the people who take those positions.
Andrea?
I
did
think
you-
yeah,
Go ahead.
it sounds like I hear the chairman of the tree committee being supportive of hiring additional staff to make this work.
Tim, before we go any further in discussing personnel, could you give us an overview of the current hiring and number of positions open in highway, particularly laborers and heavy equipment operators?
believe we have 7 driver positions open in highway. What's that? I was prepared for this at the end of the meeting.
All right, and how long have we had that, roughly that number of openings? Has it been
Over a
6
year.
months or a year or
No,
longer?
no, it's been a couple of years.
All right, and
uh,
so
So that's
bottom
just,
line is
that's
we're
just
having
drivers.
trouble.
Yeah,
we're having trouble hiring for a number of reasons, including our current pay scale and also the benefits that are offered. So hiring the kinds of people that would be able to do this work as we sit here today is not an obvious process.
Okay. You know-
The chair has a few comments, if you don't mind. Have you had any kind of consultation with the professional tree services that are in this town?
Ann, you can speak to that.
No, we've been going on a case-by-case basis when we plant trees. In terms of a program that I hope very much to put in place, the Adopt a Tree program, where I've already had a little bit of discussion with MON landscapers about, but that's a tree by tree, and it will depend on how much money we can raise.
I'm going to make a suggestion here. I'm going to suggest that you reach out to the various professional tree services that operate on a regular basis in this town. And if you don't have that list, I'm sure Tim or one of his staff could provide it. And I strongly suggest you have some kind of an open meeting with the professional tree services and perhaps some of the town's professional staff, and go through this same presentation and listen very carefully to any changes or suggestions they have to offer.
Okay, what do you expect us to hear? I'm curious what we're looking for with that meeting. What would you expect, Mr. Almy?
I would expect that they would appreciate the courtesy of seeing this coming and having the opportunity to have input. I have no idea from their perspective what they might say, but I certainly would be concerned that without such consultation and close collaboration, you may find some objections to the adoption of any kind of bylaw at town meeting.
I appreciate what you're saying, and that would be certainly covered under the, we were planning on addressing that after we got the town response, but we did also, and we'll do it sooner if you'd like. We also did have a tree professional or two on the tree committee. And so the first recommendations did have Dan Cook and Ruth Freeman involved in dealing with it. So we can certainly get more. The more consultation we get, the better. But I think the comments that are raised here today relative to staffing and the burden on the Public Works Department was the most important for us to hear. Now I look forward to hearing Mr. LaBelle's comments as well, because I think that I don't think we're going to be able to answer all the questions in the implementation, in the bylaw itself, but more in the support that we give the Public Works in getting what they need in place. Unless you see another way forward, Chairman.
My suggestion would be to work out not only the suggested bylaw, but have a pretty well thought out and implementation process so that during any discussions of the bylaw, you can clearly articulate what it means, how it would be implemented, and address any questions that come up in a thoughtful way. I think it would be a mistake to simply wait until the bylaw is adopted before you work out a fairly detailed administrative process that in fact has some not formal buy-in, but at least at a discussion level, support from the various departments that will be involved.
That terrific. Can we have a point of contact to work with on this?
It's the
Going
professional
forward?
staff, I think.
Can I
Tim, you
suggest
okay with?
something? You know, a lot of this is going to weigh on Tim Barber's group and Tim Barber. And, you know, there are lots of points that have to be, not lots, but a few that need to be really worked on. And I'm wondering if we can have a face-to-face meeting after each of you go over it carefully. Because this is a bylaw, this is really important, and I agree the implementation, you know, we've talked about this, some of these points are going to have to be implemented by who? And I visualize one meeting where it might be a 2-hour meeting face to face. Mr. Almeida, is that possible?
Well, again, my sense is that the professional staff will bear the brunt of any kind of implementation. And so they know the town's interdepartmental process pretty well. And they know, I think, what the implications are as you discuss them. So I'd stay focused with the professional staff. Pretty normally, a board such as ours is involved at a policy level, and implementation falls to the professional staff. And so while the board may have opinions, generally speaking, if you don't mind an analogy, we don't tell the professional staff how to stack the drying rack once the dishes have been done.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's why we came forward with concepts for the tree bylaw, because we wanted to, we wanted first and foremost to make sure the Board of Public Works supported having a local bylaw and was supportive of the concepts we're trying to implement. Getting it implemented always is the hard part, and we are very committed to making sure we understand how to implement before we present the bylaw, because we want success. But we do very much appreciate your policy input.
So by
Mr.
professional staff, do you mean Mr. Barber and his staff?
It would be the staff of Public Works, the building official, and planning at the least.
Yeah.
Mr.
We had that
Chairman,
meeting a year ago and only Tim is left standing.
Yeah, all right, so I'd like to also review this in more detail and provide some input. I think this needs to come back to this board perhaps at our next meeting. So the board members can share their various comments and have a discussion, a further discussion of this. And I want to echo Mr. Alves' concerns about setbacks on private property. The whole business about trees and regulating trees on private property raises, to me personally, questions about liability. If the town has required planting a tree and the town has some regulatory control over the tree, in particular on how it's maintained and whether it's healthy, and somebody puts up a swing and the limb fails, the town has touched the tree. What does that mean? The other thing I'm concerned about is the concept of taking. If you're not familiar with taking, there was a Supreme Court case about 25, 28 years ago that actually occurred in the county next to the one I was working in, and involved people I knew personally in both sides of this case. I don't see direct application at this point, but you never know. It involves the town exerting regulatory authority over private property without some kind of a nexus. And you might imagine somebody who has bought a property with a tree that the town retains some responsibility or regulatory authority over. And how does that pass from the original property owner to the new property owner without some kind of formal incorporation into the deed? And what does that do to, say, liens in the future? I'm not a lawyer. I'm simply aware that these issues arise.
The
So-
select board has given us, sorry, go on.
So I think it may be that some of the implementation and the what if problem evaluation and in particular solving those potential problems will require some form of legal counsel.
Yeah,
In any event, that's for right now. What I'd like to do is move on. The board members have had the opportunity to see the presentation. The board members may very well reach out with additional questions, and I would like to bring this back to a future meeting if that's acceptable to the other board members. Mr. Alves, are you okay to look at this in the future again?
Yeah, as long as all our comments or questions regarding the issues that we brought up today are answered. I know that's a huge undertaking on everyone, but I think you have to, if you're trying to get it approved through a bylaw, then it's gotta get it through, approved through town meeting. So all these are gonna have to be ironed out before anything, so.
Mr. LaBelle, are you okay to bring this back?
Oh, yes, I am, and, I think a local tree bylaw is a great idea. It's a good opportunity to nail some of the loose ends of this down, but I also agree with the chairman that there's some overreach here that opens up a lot of questions about legalities and private ownership and responsibilities and liability issues. So again, I just want to take a good closer look at this, make some personal notes, and I'm open to Andrea, if you want to reach out to me, or Ann Parsons wants to reach out to me. That is fine with me.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. And I want to add a personal note here. When I was a little kid, we used to visit my grandparents on Horse Neck Road. And those trees were a lot smaller, and there were more of them. You want to start planting? You got my vote for that one, right? This town could use more planting in the public right of way.
Yep.
And trees grow slowly. And I'm not sure what to make of trying to value them and how to replace a mature tree. But clearly, there's a lot of opportunity for new trees without any fuss or bother about replacement.
Hear
There
ya.
are gaps. So
Hear you. Many,
anyway.
many trees are getting old, and that's a big reason for us to start new trees in the public way. We hear you.
And
Yeah.
if I can add to that, we had, a few years back, we had a real problem with, hardwood with the gypsy moth caterpillars, and we lost a lot of trees back then. Spent a lot of money removing dead oaks and other hardwoods. And now we have, our ash trees are in danger of these ash borer beetles, and they are dying everywhere around town. We're spending a lot of time trimming and removing these as well, and there's also a lot of issues with beech trees around town. So a lot of the trees that are local are we're losing. And I agree that any fines or donations should be put into a fund. I know historically, we had fined some property owners for removing public shade trees, and those fines went back into the general fund, and it makes it tougher to use that funding for any replanting. Where if it goes into an account for planting, then it definitely makes that a lot more efficient funding to use for moving forward and planting trees. So I definitely support that.
Okay. Any other comments by board members?
No,
All right, so this meeting, today's meeting is late in the month. I don't know what date our next meeting is in August, but if you want to have another discussion in August, I suggest that your meeting with the professional staff and the tree service community happen sooner rather than later. I think those are two important conversations to have. Right?
Will do.
Anything else, board members? All
no,
right,
I would just, to Andrea, one quick comment. Meeting with the people who do this for a living is a good idea. They may have some unique perspectives that you're not aware. They do this every day. Talk to them. Talk to them.
Yeah, very, very good feedback. I appreciate it. And if you don't mind me contacting you directly, Mr. LaBelle, I certainly will.
Not at all. Not at all.
all right. Thank you very much. And thank you for working as hard as you have on this important issue. I appreciate it. And I think some good things will come out of it.
Thank you for listening to us. I just want to comment right after this meeting. I'm going to contact you, Tim, because I think we really need to sit down also with you and go over particulars of implementation.
All right. With that, we'll move to our next item, presentation by the Buzzards Bay Coalition of a septic to sewer connection program. Mr. Goulart. You need to unmute. Can you unmute your?
Yeah. Good morning, DPW board members. Thanks for having me on to give this presentation. And Andrea, Vic, Tim, a lot of familiar faces on here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Right, I hope that's showing up.
It is.
All right, so today I'm going to talk about a program that Buzzards Bay Coalition is proposing in partnership with the town of Dartmouth. This is a spin-off from our EPA Pilot Watershed Initiative grant, which is a 5-year grant, of which the town of Dartmouth is an official partner to conduct a watershed assessment, develop solutions to improve water quality, and then implement a specific number of those solutions in the watershed within that 5-year period. So we're calling this program the Connect to Protect Upon-A-Gansett Bay program. Let me see if I can just bump down to the next slide. So in the course of looking at everything in the watershed, we had water sampling sites at 18 points up and down Buttonwood Brook and its tributaries. We had water sampling sites in Upon-A-Gansett Bay and Dykes Creek, to include a bunch of sensors that were out there collecting continuous data. That narrowed us in on a couple of the key non-point pollution sites, Kempton Street, the Buttonwood Zoo, but it also started exposing sort of a gap in where the rest of the nitrogen was coming from. So Joe Costet and I started looking at the current sewer network in Dartmouth, and we worked really close with Tim and Paul Duart, who were super helpful. This was a huge undertaking to dig up all the data, and then update the Dartmouth GIS map for sewer. And then we used billing data as well as data from the public health department to overlay properties that are currently on septic but have access to sewer within the Apponeganset watershed. And we came up with 150 properties that have had a sewer line in front of their house for, what is generally an extended amount of time, but continue to operate on-site wastewater systems. So, a lot of research by Joe Costa over the years has revealed that, the average house, 3-person household, is putting out about 21 pounds of nitrogen per year from their on-site wastewater system. That nitrogen goes into groundwater, follows the contours of the topography, and makes its way down to Apponeganset Bay. Roughly 3,200 pounds of nitrogen from these 153 systems is getting into Apponeganset Bay every year, and it's the single largest source of nitrogen in the watershed. So we thought about how we might be able to impact that. And, as we looked at that, we realized that there's a lot of barriers for these households that are highlighted in red on the map here, where the black lines are sewer lines. The red houses are houses that have access to a sewer line, but continue to operate a on-site wastewater, and all that green is wetland resources, either streams, bays, or other freshwater wetlands that are in the watershed. There's a lot of barriers for individuals. So some of those barriers are financial. Some of them are structural, and some are just capacity barriers, especially for some older retirees without the capacity to plan for and execute everything that's needed through permitting and applications and dealing with a contractor to get connected. So, that the impact of all this nitrogen is that Apponeganset Bay is listed on the Mass List of Integrated Waters. We are, Buzzards Bay Coalition and the town of Dartmouth together are working on developing the science to implement a TMDL for Apponeganset Bay. And, these high nitrogen levels that currently we have no regulatory mechanism to plan from and to enforce from, they're causing increased potential for beach closures, shellfish area closures, algal blooms in Apponeganset Bay. And then, the other impact of this is that these houses in areas that had sewer lines laid sometimes decades ago are not contributing to the collective. They're not contributing to the municipal pot of money that's required to expand, maintain, and do all the things that are required to operate a complex system like the municipal sewer system is. So our proposal is to increase sewer connections in this population by providing them with technical and financial assistance through about $100,000 that we've been approved to use through our EPA pilot watershed grant, and engage these households and offer this incentive, offer technical assistance, offer contracting assistance, and try to get as many of these people to connect as possible. And when I say as many as we can, I think we're looking at trying to connect roughly 20 of these properties a year. We think is a realistic expectation, because there are other barriers to connection. So this is just a quick look at, in the course of the pilot watershed initiative and doing all this water sampling and pollutant load modeling, we came up with sort of a site list, and this involved a lot of stakeholders throughout New Bedford and Dartmouth. And we did once we identified these sites, we looked at the potential for nitrogen removal, and then we did a cost benefit analysis of how much is it going to cost to remove a pound of nitrogen. And you can see in this chart here that spending the money to incentivize someone to connect to sewer really does come out as a very cost-effective way to reduce nitrogen in Apponeganset Bay. With the understanding that some of these other projects that are going forward that are bolded, like Buttonwood Zoo and the lower Buttonwood dams and the Kempton corridor, which is getting 3.7 million in green infrastructure put into it, are going to have a lot of co-benefits that connecting someone to sewer doesn't. They're going to reduce heat island effect, improve air quality, provide habitat. So we're balancing that, but we're dedicating one large chunk of money to this program to incentivize connections, because it can be a very quick way to reduce nitrogen loading to the bay. So we kind of went over a lot of this already. You know, we're looking at 40+ homes. We're looking at this being a 2-year program. Our pilot watershed grant ends in the end of 2026. So we're looking at starting the program in October, provided we can get all the details worked out with some of the approved utility installers that we're looking at and currently talking to, with Tim in the DPW department, with Chris, who we've had a good sit down with and who's very supportive in public health. We're looking at kicking off in October and then running this 2-year program to sort of try to push some of these properties on that may just indefinitely defer because of barriers. You know, so we're looking at in the first couple of years, increasing flow to the wastewater treatment plant by about 9,000 gallons per day. And if we were to be able to extend this program and connect all 153 homes, you know, we'd have about a 14 to 15,000 gallon per day, you know, in addition to the 9,000. And so altogether, you're looking at about 23,000 gallons per day if we were to connect all these properties. So the funding for this is coming from SNEP Pilot Watershed Initiative. We're looking for 100,000 in private funding or other grant sources that we're currently looking at. And then the town of Dartmouth, we're looking for some reduction in connection fees, and then obviously in-kind time, you know, from Tim and his staff that would go out and do inspections, process applications, and some of the other work that's gone into it. And Tim and I have talked through the exact hourly rates that these tasks entail, as well as Chris Michaud and I have gone through this as well, and we've come up with a number. But the outcomes of this project would be really to reduce nitrogen loading to the bay by about 1,000 pounds in those first 2 years of the program. If we can get those 40 to 50 homes connected, improve water quality, increase revenue for the utility, which we'll talk about later, and then increased individual and community resilience. A lot of these septic systems are, you know, approaching the end of their life cycle. They're in areas with very high groundwater, which is only going to get higher as sea level rise continues to slowly march forward and our rainfall patterns continue to get wetter. And then they're going to improve the property values of these individual homes that get connected, which then allows the town eventually, through, you know, regularly scheduled assessor visits, to collect more tax revenue. So we looked at these properties, and what we came up with was, you know, narrowing down the 150 properties to a smaller number that we want to initially target, sort of the low-hanging fruit of all these houses that are currently on septic. So we looked at, as a whole, these properties are mainly 92% pre-Title V construction. Home value excluding land, you know, we kind of look at that 12 and 4 o'clock on the pie chart there on home value. Most of the properties we're targeting are under 250,000. They're owner occupied, and they're smaller homes under 2,000 square feet. What that sort of demographic narrows us down into is focusing these resources into the working class neighborhoods of Dartmouth first, where the need is highest, where the financial burden is highest for connection, and making sure that these 60 homes that sort of really cluster into the working class neighborhoods like Milton and Sharp and Potter Street neighborhoods have first crack at this incentive, you know, versus, you know, the guy who lives on Star of the Sea Drive, you know, who can clearly afford to connect if he really wants to, right? So we want to make sure that this first iteration is targeting the people who need the incentive. And then if there is a poor response rate, we have sort of tiered these properties out, and we will open it up to successive tiers as time goes on. So another really important thing about these properties, these 60 homes, is that the majority of them are within 50 feet of the existing sewer line, which makes them a really cost-effective way to, you know, connect. And we're going to be able to maximize the number of houses we connect versus, you know, spending $30,000 or $40,000 on a house that's way set back off the road and maybe even requires an LP pump to get connected. So we're trying to go after the low-hanging fruit first. And then as we expand the circle in the future, if we continue the program, if we find funding to continue the program, you know, then we'll go after those harder, more difficult, more expensive houses to connect. So here's the money slide. What are we asking for from Dartmouth? And Tim and I have talked about this, and, you know, full disclosure, Tim wasn't too happy about waiving the connection fee because that money goes into his enterprise fund, and I get that. So, you know, working with Tim and Chris, and with Rob, you know, we wanted to figure out, what does this actually cost Dartmouth to connect somebody to sewer from a man-hours perspective, working on all these various tasks that have to be done, from, you know, issuing a permit and reviewing the plans, to the mark out of utilities, to abandonment permits, and then just updating the billing database. And we came up with roughly $600 in man hours. And I feel like this is pretty conservative. I used the 2023 hourly salary or annual salaries for these positions to calculate the hourly rates, and then added fringe in because I know that all matters in the end. So we get a loaded hourly rate. So we're looking at $600, and we're asking the town to, for the 2-year duration of the program, reduce the connection fee for program participants to $600. You know, and so there's a loss of revenue for the town for each of these connections, but it's revenue that maybe they never would have seen had the program not incentivized connection in the first place. And, you know, the chart across the bottom shows what the town would make from, you know, an individual home that connects through this program. And that takes into account an annual rate increase of 0.5%. I used a $500 a year average annual sewer bill in Dartmouth after looking at a few people's sewer bills who I work with who live in Dartmouth. And, you know, this thing has a 4-year payback period for that lost revenue on the connection fee. And then you can see as that starts to march out to sort of the 10-year mark, you're accruing, you know, $8,000 to $9,000 of revenue. At 0.5% is probably a pretty small increase. And then if you connect 10 homes, the town's accruing, you know, $500,000 in revenue, and then so on and so on. So I think that, you know, when we look at this from a life cycle costing perspective, waiving some of the fees and removing some of the barriers for these homes to connect has multiple benefits for the homeowner, for the town, and also makes sense financially. When we look at the longer term financial implications of either leaving this house to defer connection indefinitely, or pulling it on at a small loss initially, we quickly make up those losses. So that's what we're asking the DPW board to consider, is to approve a connection fee discount for what I would say is roughly 40 to 50 properties in the first 2 years for program participants that are in the program and are willing to connect with our assistance. So I'll leave it there, and then you know, open it up and answer some questions. And I can leave the brief up, or I can stop sharing. What does everybody prefer?
Board members,
You can take it down for me. I'm okay.
Okay, great.
Rick, you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. Board members, any questions of Dan?
So this is a 2-year program, Dan, with a dedicated value to it. And you're asking the town to contribute, I guess, a $600 value per house that is removed.
Yeah, so right now the connection fee for, you know, what is an average private residence is $2,500. And we're asking the town to reduce that to $600. So the
Oh.
homeowner would pay $600. So you'd be doing a $1,900 reduction per home.
Okay, thanks.
Which,
for
is
clarifying
roughly
that.
$80,000. That would be in-kind match from the town of Dartmouth towards this grant. On the assumption that has a 4-year payback period once that person's connected and
Gotcha.
they start making contributions to the utility.
Okay, does the coalition anticipate any pushback from residents who don't want to connect?
No,
It is-
we realize this is a voluntary program. So we are looking to, work through all the logistics of it, sign a MOA with the town of Dartmouth. Once we resolve all of these, financial and logistical issues through meetings like this, then we will send out engagement materials to these households, informing them that there's an incentive program that can pay for a portion of their connection.
It's a good
And
incentive.
hoping to get a voluntary response from a fairly good amount. I've talked with a couple of the approved utility installers and gone through this program because, like Rob said earlier about the trees, I really wanted to get to like ground truth on what these guys are seeing and what their feelings about the program were before we made some adjustments to it and brought it forward. And I'll use two guys, Pontes and Rigo, both were really positive, and they feel like for a lot of these homes we're trying to reach out to and engage and get to come on board, the finances are the #1 barrier to connection. And then if we can provide them with 5,000 of the 7,000 or 8,000, that they'll really be amenable to jumping on board with the program and getting connected to sewer.
So how much involvement does your group have individually? I mean, are you helping the homeowner hire the contractor?
We are going to contract. So we are going to take that right off the homeowner's plate, and I really
Okay.
looked at, New
I like that.
Bedford's lead service line replacement program as a model for this. I have an 1898 house over here on Byron Street, right off Allen. And I just had my lead service line replaced, and they reached out to me, told me about the incentive program. I didn't have to do a thing except for host a visit into my basement with the contractor. The contractor had me sign a form, and there was no fee or any payment due on my part for this particular program. And then they came back and replaced my lead service line. So we're looking to replicate something very close to that for these Dartmouth households and say, look, we'll deal with the contractor. We'll set up the contract. It'll be a 3-party contract between the coalition, the homeowner, and the installer. And that contract will clearly outline who's paying, who's responsible for what. And the homeowner just signs off on that and says, okay, I owe $1,200 or $2,000, and
No, good deal. The easier you
contractor's all
make it,
taken care of.
the easier you make it, the more participants you get. Tim, has the
That's-
town ever considered, I guess it would be a bylaw, that would force anyone that doesn't meet Title V requirements to connect to existing sewer?
So that's the Board of Health. So
Yeah,
the Board of Health mandates those connections.
yeah.
And
absolutely.
they do send letters,
So
to
there
residents.
can't be some authority or pressure exerted on residents who do not want to participate for whatever reasons.
Right.
To the
If
best
they
of my,
can't-
to the best of my knowledge, that's all per Title V and when you transfer ownership.
Yeah.
Yes,
If
Yeah.
sewer runs by the property and it's feasible, transfer
Yeah.
ownership, then it's up to the Board of Health to engage.
yeah,
Unless the
no,
proj-
I
unless
understand, I
a-
understand
yeah.
that, but I'm just saying, if it's not a Title V issue, and there's existing sewer, other than a Title V issue coming up because of some type of failure or
Yeah.
sale of the property or transfer of the property. Does the town have any authority to go in there and say, we want you to participate in this and you kind of have to? I don't know if we have that authority.
Not sure.
I would question if I was a resident and you were coming after me and I've got a new system in, where'd you get the watershed? Where's your numbers come from? And somebody from from your mapping system, from what I saw, forgive me for my ignorance here, is some of that portion that had high nitrogen levels were already tied into sewer. So how do you establish where'd your numbers come from? I'd question that if I didn't know enough about it, so.
And we want
Yeah.
to make this a really positive program. You know, we
Correct.
don't want to turn this into a punitive. We're selling
Yes.
this as a huge opportunity for these people. There's a
Right.
little bad taste in people's mouth from the Mass DEP Title V stuff.
Right,
So we really want to make this, hey, we are here to help you and make this super easy. It's going to increase your property value. It's going to free up the use of portions of your parcel that you couldn't previously use because of leach field restrictions. You know, this is a great opportunity. Take advantage of it now, before Mass DEP comes back down in 5 years.
right.
And tries to tell everybody they got to upgrade to nitrogen removing septics or something crazy like that. So
So you're asking the town to reduce their fee by 25%, right? So question for you is, how
More
about
than
these
that.
contractors? Can you go after them and say, okay, the town is doing their part? You know,
Yeah.
if they, most guys, I believe Ponce is in Dartmouth, and forgive me again, because I don't work in Dartmouth anymore.
yeah, he's on.
Are they willing to reduce their price cost by 25% as well, right? So it's a game that we all play to make everybody happy, right?
The cost is 75% reduction.
Oh, I'm
Not
sorry,
25,
yeah.
my bad. So 75% is same thing on their end.
Yeah, I mean, we're funding the incentive with grant money, and I'm meeting with Ponce in particular on Tuesday out at their office on Russell's Mills to try to negotiate and talk through, you know, what kind of rate reductions we might get from them for a dedicated contract, similar to what the city did for the lead water line replacement. Like, you know, you're going to get 300 connections here. Actually, it was 3,000 connections in New Bedford. You know, you're gonna make money on volume here. So what can you do for us on rate reductions? You know, obviously in this economic climate, like everything from a PVC pipe connector to, you know, the machinery they're using has gone up in price. So it's going to be tough for them, but we're going to try and press them to bring their price down slightly so we can, you know, maybe connect even a few more houses if we end up with some cost savings there.
And let me do you mind if I add some more comment here?
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna add additional work to all of us. So for one, and I'm not sure I know the answer, have all of these properties been researched to whether or not they have existing betterment assessments for past sewer projects? So,
The answer is no.
right, so that's gonna
Some
be,
may fall into betterment areas.
right, so that will dramatically change the connection cost. So any properties that have a sewer main that crosses the front of their property that were issued a sewer betterment, you know, back when the sewer was installed, they get a credit on their connection fee, so they don't pay a connection fee at all. The only fee, so on top of the connection fee, which is $2,500, they pay an II fee of $500 and a cast iron cleanout cover fee for $228. So the only fees for anybody that had a betterment, because the connection fees were always built into the project and the betterment, they would be paying that $728 rather than the
Right.
25 plus the 728.
That's a great point, Tim. And you know, I did do an initial look at the betterment areas, and it looks like most of these initial 60 that we're targeting fall outside the betterment areas into sort of older neighborhoods, you know, built in the 1940s and 50s.
Yep.
But there are a few that fall in there.
Yep. So I definitely say look at that and look at those numbers. Also, let's see. So when you look at, you know, when the enterprise fund kind of funding this, you know, that gets put on the backs of the existing sewer and water ratepayers that are connected, that have paid full price. And there are concerns that, you know, they're there are people who can't afford to connect on other parts of town that are not in this watershed that may raise concern. And what about me? Why don't I get a discount on my connection fees? So, that's kind of a concern for us when you look at an enterprise fund funding this, and I don't know, if the town has, any funding for this. I know the Board of Health has some funding opportunities and assistance for people that can't afford to connect to sewer. So that's a way. And then I also recommend reaching out to some of the suppliers, because, some of these suppliers may want to sponsor the program and offer discounts or donated, pipe and fittings, for this program,
Yeah. No, that's a great idea, Tim.
and I think those are all good ways and avenues to look at and see what it does to the numbers.
Hey, Tim,
Yes,
I have a question regarding this year's budget.
Yeah.
Did we include a certain number of connection fees of these kinds of homes in our budget?
well, we don't budget for,
Okay, that's
we
That's what
budget
I
for
thought.
our costs. We don't budget for,
right. So in other words,
revenue.
we're not actually losing money from the budget per se, as long as we break even with the actual costs associated with this process.
Well, you lose the revenue into the enterprise
Into
system.
the enterprise fund for future upgrades.
Correct.
But you haven't
But-
accounted.
But as is
Right.
shown in the last slide, you make that up over the next few years.
Correct.
I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, I think with, in particular, with that particular, if you will, accelerator of additional sewer fees, I agree strongly.
And a couple other mentions. So I would also, pose this to the select board, because this doesn't only add a benefit to the sewer and water users, it adds a benefit to everybody in town. So anybody that uses the bay for recreation, boating, everything. I think it adds a benefit to everybody. So if they would be willing to, put up some costs as well. And, before we increase our fee to $2,500, our connection fee was $1,500. So we may be able to also, kind of, for these older homes that are in this program, at minimum, reduce the cost to the previous fee, which also might be helpful. What your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I think any discount from the 2,500 is helpful. And, even if we were to do the $1,500, I think that if we're able to sort of, amortize that out over the first, few sewer bills, rather than making the person pay it all up front, because a lot of these people just do not have that money in savings. And that's why they've deferred connections so long. Fixed income people, lower income people are just really in a state of permanent deferment of connection, even though their on-site systems are getting old and maybe not being maintained properly. So, the 21 pounds per year is a perfectly functioning Title V system that's well maintained and recently installed. So if you're looking at some of these homes that were built in 1948, that potentially still have the same 55-gallon drum system draining to the ground back there, it's, you're probably looking at 60, 80 pounds of nitrogen per year coming out of that thing.
Absolutely.
So
I was gonna mention you seemed a little conservative, especially when these are that old, but yeah. Yeah, and how often do they maintain them?
So I recommend, we have all the books and documents of all the properties that have betterment assessments. and, you know, as does the assessors, but, you know, you can come through and look at these books and, and, and see if we can, you know, take a lot of these properties, you know, out of that program that are already discounted, which would definitely help.
All right, so board members, I think we're very close to approving something associated with this program. I suggest that Dan and Tim come back with us with specific recommendations for fee waivers or fee adjustments and a fairly clear set of criteria when they would be applied. And then any other program details that the board needs to approve. And I think if you want to bring that back at our next meeting, Tim.
Absolutely.
But I think from my perspective, I'd like to see the specific numbers that would be applied to this program. And I'd like at a board level to approve those changes because we did just go through an adjustment of the connection fees.
Correct.
All right. Board members, do you have any suggestions about how to move forward?
No, that's a great idea. I really would encourage that we move forward with this. I think it, again, is no pun intended, but I think it's a win-win for everybody. You know, the environment and the long-term stability of rates. You're going to get more ratepayers.
Okay. Also, if Dan, you could help us understand better from your perspective what you see the administration of this program would be. Obviously, we're not going to administer it. We are simply going to approve adjustments in our rates. But I think the more information we have to justify the benefits, the better we can feel about reducing the connection fees and making any other adjustments that you and Tim want to recommend.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob.
Okay.
I've got a bunch more slides. I just didn't want to torture you guys with them.
Thank you.
Site plan review?
Yeah, Rick, please.
Does that impact site plan review as well and other boards? When you know, obviously you're dealing with septic, so you have to abandon the existing septic. That's Board of Health. And then when you need to tie into sewer, do you need a site plan? So that requires survey, design, and all that stuff? Or how does the town of Dartmouth deal with that?
So we don't, the only time we require site plan or for a sewer connection is for a new construction or any additions or anything that is proposed.
So a
for
licensed
site work.
drain, so a licensed drain layer could come in with a sketch,
Yes,
say, here's your site plan, tying into sewer, maintain and follow our regs.
Yeah.
So there's really no cost except for the construction side, right?
correct.
Okay, which we're looking for them to reduce their fee as well. Very good. As long as it's only strictly for this program, because other contenders or people who want to tie in is gonna want the same thing too, right? So I guess we'll have to establish the boundaries of the watershed and the limitations of X, Y, and Z. That's all.
All right. Okay, with that, Dan, do you have what you need to move forward?
I do. Yeah, I'll link up with Tim and you know, we'll work through it. I think we're on the same page.
Sounds good.
And then Tim can come back and I'll get you all that other information.
Excellent.
Tim, is it clear what the board's looking for?
It is, absolutely.
Okay. With that, thank you, Dan. Thank you for the
Thank you,
time.
guys.
And thank you for the insight that helped you put this program together. With that, I'd like to continue that item to our next meeting. So at our next meeting, I hope we'll hear both from the tree committee and staff about how to move forward with that. And then also the staff and Buzzards Bay Coalition on the septic to sewer connection program. All right. Our next item is.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks. I'm gonna
Thank you,
dial-
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Look forward to seeing you. Our next item is new business, item C, approval of contract number 24-WPC-01 generators. Tim?
So we put together the specification, and advertisement for the water pollution control generator upgrade to upgrade generators at 4 pump stations in town. The low bidder for this project was Tilton Electric Incorporated of Plymouth, Massachusetts for $367,975. This project was approved by and funded by Bristol County ARPA program for additional funding above that. So this bid came in under the estimate, so that is good. And we recommend the contract to Tilton Electric Incorporated.
Board members, any questions?
So these are 4 brand new generator sets?
Four brand new generators. So currently, most of our pump stations are serviced by kicker motors that are connected to one pump. So the kicker motor, it's not a generator to run the whole
Yeah,
pump
I know.
station,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so if we have a power outage and that motor is running that one pump and that pump fails, there's no way of energizing the secondary pump.
Mhm.
So, or the rest of the power in the station. So, we're looking at replacing these motors with a brand new generators.
And this is ARPA?
This is funded by ARPA, yes.
Okay. Any of the projects that get approved today that are ARPA funded, be sure that the select board knows that we've approved them, the contracts, or wherever we are in the process and we're moving forward, because I know they're extremely interested.
Correct.
All right. So this is to approve a contract. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve contract number 24-WPC-01.
Do I have this, Mr. LaBelle has moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second for the total amount of $366,975, not to exceed, to Tilton Electric Inc.
All right.
Tilton, yeah, Tilton.
Tilton,
Mr. Alves,
sorry, Tilton.
seconds. When can we make sure that number, Tim, what is the correct number there?
$367,975.
Okay. So we'll confirm the number. All in favor, Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Alves?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, the next item is item new business D, which is notice of betterment release, 68 York Street.
So you've heard this before, but some of these projects, we record a notice of betterment before the project is constructed based on the estimate. And then after the project is completed and the funding is finalized, we issue an order of betterment to these properties. So the notice puts all the properties on notice that they're going to get a betterment. So if there's any, deed research that they know for a transfer of property, they know that they're going to have a betterment assessment. So the notice of betterment was originally estimated at $11,998.07, which is on that property, recorded in book 4161, page 193. They are looking to release that off the property deed, and we take care of that. The order of betterment, which was recorded in book 4822, page 63, was for $7,017.47. That's the actual betterment that, we wouldn't release that. That would be released upon payment through the assessor's office. So we're just releasing this notice of betterment from the property.
Right. And board members, any questions?
No.
No.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve notice of betterment release for 68 York Street and the values noted.
Mr. LaBelle has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Alves is seconded. All in favor, Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Mr. Alves?
Right?
Chair votes aye. Item is approved. Next item is, let's see, amendment number 2, 579 Old Westport Road, water treatment plant backwash supply storage tank.
This
Mr.
amendment is for the 579 Westport Road, upgrades at the wastewater treatment, the water treatment facility. It's for 100% design of the upgrades and will take us through the bid and award process. The original design estimate was for $288,300, and to date, we have awarded 2 previous phases totaling $90,000. This amendment is for the remaining plus $7,800 for additional geotechnical work, which brings us to the additional contract of $206,100 for a total contract price of $296,100. And this is funded by Article 10 in the spring town meeting 6 of 24.
Board members, any questions?
No.
The full amount was funded at town meeting, Tim?
So, yeah, so previously, we used for the first phase, we used emergency funding through the water department operational budget. And then for the second phase, we used revenue replacement ARPA funding that was approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Mhm.
So this third phase is fully funded through the article. And there's some money left in that second phase as well.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve new
Motion,
business E?
motion to approve amendment 2 for 579 Old Westport Road Water Treatment Plant backwash supply storage tank. And I'm a little bit unsure of this, is the number 296,100
Yes,
for 2,900 for $296,100.
that is it.
Right, do I have, Mr. LaBelle moves, do I have a second?
So amendment 2 is costing how much? I'm sorry,
296,100.
but that's the full amount, is it not, Tim?
That's the full amount. That amends the contract to a total of $296,100.
All right, I'm a little confused, forgive me.
Minus what we've already paid.
Yes,
So
So
it's
they-
not, this amendment 2 is not for the full amount then?
so the amendment, the change in the additional cost is $206,100.
So that
the-
should be, this amendment should be for that amount, is that correct?
Well, I think,
If we already paid,
I think they're amending the original the original estimate at 288,600 to read 296,100 for the full agreement. But you are correct that the amendment alone is just for $206,100.
All right, so the increase of the amendment is $206,100.
Yeah.
Resulting in a total contract amount of $296,100. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right,
where is that state here? I don't see any numbers.
under Article 5 on page 4,
I'm sorry.
for services performed under this agreement, owner agrees to pay engineer lump sum of $296,100.
Yeah, but that's
so-
not, we just decided that was not correct.
So but that's the total contract amount, right, Tim?
Yeah, then it continues to say fees for this project shall be billed monthly as the accrued based upon the services performed as a percent of the total lump sum fee of each phase.
Do we have enough clarity to approve this, or do we need additional clarity? Board members?
I'm okay.
Rick, do you want more clarity on this?
Yeah, usually an amendment, you already have a contract for X amount. If we already paid X amount, then we should be amending the additional amount. Is that correct? I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong.
And we,
This appears, the 296 from what you said, Tim, was the full amount of the contract, A plus B.
correct.
So then we shouldn't be signing amendment 2. If you want, I can, you can make the changes based off of X, Y, and Z and without we can approve it, subject to you adjusting the number accordingly. I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
But-
we can add the other costs for the other phases with the increase total as well. So
I
this,
would show A plus B is 296 and, this amendment number 2 being 206,000 and change, I guess, if we paid 90 grand out, I don't know.
correct.
That's my recommendation.
All right, Mr. LaBelle, would you care to amend your motion?
I will amend it to include the numbers already spent off the total that equals 296, 1,100.
So the total contract amount is 296,100.
Minus money, yes. But show the money spent that gets us to that.
Right, so we'll
As-
amend,
as
we'll
Rick
amend
said.
that Article 5 in the contract to list those costs.
All right. With that, Mr. Alves, are you comfortable seconding the motion?
Second, yes.
All right, Mr. Alves seconds. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye,
Mr. Alves?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Item is approved. Moving on, new business F, Dartmouth odor control biofilter evaluation.
Okay, so this contract agreement is for time and materials for the planning, bid support, and construction oversight during the biofilter replacement. The contract price is for time and materials for $19,185 and will be funded out of Article 6 from Springtown meeting June of 2020.
Board members, any questions? I have a question. Tim, if for some reason this $19,185 is not sufficient, how do you propose to proceed?
I propose that they submit an amendment to this contract and I would submit that back to the board for approval.
All right. With that clarification, do I have a motion on this one?
motion to approve the Dartmouth odor control biofilter evaluation by Woodward and Curran at the value of $19,185.
Mr. LaBelle has moved approval. Do I have a second?
Second,
Mr. Alves has approved. Mr. Bell, how do you vote?
Aye,
Mr. Alves?
aye.
Chair votes aye. Item is approved. Next item is the annual Cedar Dell Lake monitoring.
Yeah, so this contract agreement is to continue the monitoring of the Cedar Dell Lake levels as required by our Water Management Act permit. This is for FY25 contract and agreement is not to exceed $25,000. This is funded through the Water Division operating budget.
Board members, any questions?
How often do we have to keep doing this, Tim? We've been doing this, monitoring this forever.
Yeah, as long as DEP requires it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is through
It's in our-
local conservation, right? Too?
What's that?
Was this also through our local conservation?
It isn't, no, it's through DEP, through our Water Management Act permit. It was required when we built the Pinelli wells.
Right,
There was a lot of concern with the drawdown of the lake,
the-
so
right. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
with the drawdown that Mike O'Reilly was involved as
Uh,
well back in the day.
he may have been. Maybe correct. I know through DEP, they have required us to monitoring and through our permit, we have to maintain the service.
Okay,
Tim, how long have you been doing this monitoring?
At least
Rough-
the number,
roughly?
about 8 to 9 years, I think.
Probably 8 to 9 years.
All right.
Yeah, since the
Um,
Pinelli
Really?
wells were constructed.
Could you, unless there is compelling data to suggest a linkage between the use of that well field and the lake, could you and the staff explore with DEP suspending the requirement to do this monitoring until such time as we ask for a modification of the permit?
Yeah, we can put that request in. I know there was for the time that we were reconstructing the Violetta wells. And during that time, we had multiple Pinelli wells off. So we actually shut down the 579 Old Westport Road water treatment facility altogether. So we weren't pumping any water out of that area. But we did continue monitoring. And we did have some drought conditions during that period. So we can, discuss this with AECom as well, as far as moving forward.
Yeah, after 10 years, I would imagine you've got a story to tell. And if that story is little or no impact, then we ought to be able to get out from underneath the requirement.
Yeah, I
Okay,
believe.
do I have a motion for approval?
Steve, I think, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Chairman, I know, DEP's requirement because of the water management permit is because of a few years ago when we had the drought. They were concerned that when we put on the new Violetta wells, that it'd be a problem with the Cedar Pond. In fact, I was talking with Neil Fennessy yesterday regarding it, because Fall River is doing a impact study on global warming and whatnot. They have a grant with the Fall River Water Department right now, so that I'm involved in that also. So the reason we're doing this is because the state is covering their behind on their permit they gave us. And again, I guess once we get with the Pinelli wells running, all the wells together, and we show that we're not affecting the groundwater, that we probably get done with it. So, but it'd probably be a couple more years. That's all I have.
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, motion to approve the Cedar Dell Lake monitoring with AECom in the value of $25,000. Again,
All right. Do I have Mr. LaBelle has moved, do I have a second?
Second,
Mr. Alves is second. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
aye,
Mr. Alves, how do you vote?
aye.
Chair votes aye. The item is approved.
Gentlemen, if I may, I have an emergency after 10 too. If I may leave the meeting.
All right, we will continue the meeting with 2 members, which is a quorum. So Mr. Alves will now drop out.
Thank you.
Um,
Sorry for the inconvenience.
thank
That's
you,
fine.
Rick.
We got a
Sure.
late start. I appreciate you hanging in there.
It's all good. Thank you all for
Rick.
your generosity and your gift. Much appreciated all.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good day.
Good day.
Thanks. Okay, item H, professional services for cross-connection control.
Yeah, so this is a continuation of a past contract that we have with Weston Sampson for cross-connection control. There's been increases in the number of cross-connection permits and as well as increase in prices. So their new cost for FY 25 is $89,679.60, which is funded out of the operation budget. And just kind of a word moving forward in hiring an assistant superintendent of the water and sewer department. We're looking to have that individual be licensed in cross connection certification and and assist with this program to cut some of the costs moving forward.
Assist or
Right.
take it over, Tim?
Well, I would like to take it back over eventually. But we'll start with assistance and maybe we can take that back over and complete all the work ourselves again.
Okay, and again, our timeline is, who knows, right?
Correct. So we're gonna work the new assistant water and sewer superintendent is slated to begin on August 5th. And we'll be working with him to, with the training for that certification, upon learning the town and the water system and getting his feet wet here, and then we'll, work on moving to have him trained and certified with cross connection as well. As he is, stated that he's interested in it as well.
Okay. Rob, your voice is off.
On a related question, is your current water superintendent licensed to do these kinds of inspections?
No, I am not.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve professional services for cross-connection control with Weston and Sampson in the value of $89,679.60.
Mr. LaBelle has moved. The chair will second. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Item is approved. Next item is the director evaluation. Mr. LaBelle, did you receive a copy of a draft evaluation?
I did, and I have been speaking to, or spoken to a number of people in Public Works, and I am still in the process of doing that.
All right, would you therefore wish to continue this item?
I'd like a little bit more time, if that's okay.
All right, why don't we continue this to our next meeting? I want to point out, however, that this review is part of an annual process that also includes a possible salary increase. And so time is money, and I'm sure there's at least one person that is interested in expediting this thing as we move forward.
Is there, if I may, Mr. Chairman, did you have any other questions?
I have no questions. What you see as a draft is my first stab based on conversations with top managers in the department.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from with it. I appreciate any other additions, changes, anything you want to do to that, and then we can have a conversation.
Okay, we may be meeting on the 30th, and that's okay with me? Could this be brought up then?
Tim, we did not need to reschedule because we were
Oh,
able to
That's right.
put this
I
meeting
apologize.
together.
That's right. I
So-
apologize.
So our next meeting would be the 16th. Am I showing that correctly?
No, probably the 15th would be the Thursday.
I mean, sorry, the 15th. Okay. Well, that's good because the 16th I have an echocardiogram to find out if I still have a heart. It's an open question sometimes. All right.
I don't want to give you my schedule.
Oh, this is only one item on the schedule.
I'll be in the door behind you.
Well, as long as they can,
Tim, I'm
Keep it-
sorry to delay this, but I just want to be as thorough as the chairman, and I just have few more discussions I would like to have.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll
And
I'll wear these old boots for another couple weeks, that's fine.
well, given, first of all, that this is one of the named responsibilities for the board, and that town meeting, at the last town meeting, they agreed to keep this responsibility with the board. I appreciate all of us taking it pretty seriously. So, all right, so we'll continue this to our next meeting. I have no updates for committees. Ron, do you have anything?
Well, I'll let Tim speak to this, but we met with the county commissioners for Bristol County regarding ARPA funding and an extension. And they have agreed to that, but you know, Tim, weigh in anytime you want, but it is imperative that our consultant and we move expeditiously to meet the timelines that they've established. Or, you know, the potential for us losing value of ARPA that's been dedicated to the town for projects could evaporate very quickly. So we
Right.
really need to stay on our toes about that.
Correct. The county, Bristol County has a, well, they have a hard deadline by the federal government on these funding for December 31st of 2024, where Bristol County has their own county deadline for September 30th for awarding funding and for projects that are awarded. So our, our schedule is to exceed that, and we requested that in writing to the county, and they invited us to their meeting this past Tuesday. Ron and I and Ben Rollins from Weston and Sampson all attended the meeting, and we requested the extension. They agreed to extend it to November 12th of 2024. So we'll be moving forward, as Ron said, expeditiously. The 90%, so the plans are at 90%, and they're being submitted this week by today, the end of the day today, to the state DEP for review for the project. The site plans have already been submitted to the town for planning review, and that meeting is scheduled for August 5th. So hopefully, once these two meetings are completed, we can continue to move forward with the 100% design plans and get the specifications completed and start to advertise this project.
So
You know,
what is
and-
what is owed to the county by their deadline?
An awarded contract.
An awarded contract?
Yeah.
And what is the timeline for this type of a contract to be awarded? What does it look like once you have the plans and specs in hand?
Let's see. So we have an estimated timeline. I'll bring it up on my screen.
And the reason I ask is that I presume that this board will need to approve the contract.
If I can share this with you. Yes, you are correct. Share my screen. Host disabled. CCTV, can I please have authority to share my screen?
All right, so if the
Thank you.
county deadline is the 15th of November, our third
12th.
Thursday meeting in October is the 17th of October.
So the county extended to the 12th of October, of November.
Yep.
this is kind of, if you look at this timeline, but, you know, there's some room built in for additional time where we're gonna try to, you know, expedite all these processes. So, you know, preparing the contracts and, so here it has, you know, submit to Mass DEP for Mass DEP review. That was between 8/12 and 9/29, where we're submitting that by the end of the day today, which is ahead of schedule. And we're hoping that all these processes become ahead of schedule. The our meeting prior to the November date would be probably third week of October. We can look at our schedule on this project before we schedule that meeting. If it has to be extended a week, maybe we can do that or adjust that meeting schedule to meet that. And if not, we can schedule an early meeting in November to award that project as well.
Well, your dates, I don't know what the turnaround after this board's approval would be, but our normal meeting in October would be the 17th. If we delay a week, that's the 24th. And then the only other date in November is the 7th. And I'm not sure if we approve on the 7th, whether you've got enough time to get the package to the county and on its agenda, because I don't know what lead time they have for the various their approval processes. But I think
there is one more day in October if on Halloween.
Yeah, I'd kind of like not to be taking formal action on Halloween. But I think this timeline needs to be thoroughly revised. And I think you should add the lead time for our agenda, posting our agenda. And
in the county.
And our approval and signing off on the action as if needed, and then the county's process. And again, the county's going to have lead time in the same way we have lead time for both their agenda and then possibly for review of the contract.
Yep. So I will.
That you've had some stickiness in past contract reviews, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so presume that, you know, you might ask them whether you got to go through the federal contracting and bid process or the state process, and, you know, make sure that that's all done properly.
So the advertisement process is the same. It's just the limits are different. So we're following both. But I will reach out to the county and ask for their timeline for submittals prior to their meetings, so we can get that on the schedule. That'd be good.
Yeah. One more concern I have, Tim, is someone gonna reach out to the state to try to float this thing to the top of the table so they review it quickly?
Steve, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, well, from what I've seen, that DEP has reached out to Ben, that they're gonna expedite it as quick as possible. The faster they get it in, the faster they'll review it, and they're gonna turn it back to us quickly. So I have all good faith that Jim McLaughlin from DEP, the Southeast rep, chief, will work on this. And I have one more phone call to make today to the other person that's involved in it. The third person from Boston, I don't know who she is. So, but I will deal with the Southeast region people, and I'm sure that they'll expedite it as soon as they get it. So they're quick turnaround here in the Southeast region. So.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Steve. That's a good thing.
Yeah, Tim, if you had a revised schedule that showed our process and the county's process, and made very clear that if we miss the county process deadline, the money evaporates on this urgent project. That might help DEP understand why we're asking for special treatment.
Absolutely, and that was the notification that was requested to be presented to Mass DEP for that reason.
Okay,
I also spoke to our rep, Chris Markey this morning, to keep it on his radar, to keep the state, the county, keeping us moving forward, so.
Yep.
I think he's gonna reach out to Tim and make sure he gets particulars taken care of, so.
all right, thank you. Tim, anything else?
Yes, so not on this currently. But I do have, sharing. So moving forward, let's see. Currently, they're looking at opera, the remaining balance is about approximately 392,000. With the generator project coming in under, that may open up some more funding as well. So as we submit this award to the county, they will adjust the numbers and we'll get a total remaining balance. We do have a couple other projects that I'm working on and I would like to submit to the select board for their next meeting for them to certify so we can move forward. One of them is the upgrade of the switchgear here at the water pollution control facility, and that's for about $212,000. So we're working on that as well. And there's a couple other small projects for water that we're working on submitting.
Do those require state approval?
County,
Yeah, I understand that, but
no, just county.
just county. So in other words, once those projects are all the way through whatever the award process is, you can basically slip them underneath and put them underneath the project. And then to the extent that the county says, oh, well, okay, you've got so much money, you just say, okay, how about this one and this one? So they're ready to go.
Exactly.
Okay, so we will be, I presume then we are likely to see more than just one project for approval at the meeting, at our meeting before the county meeting.
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
And then, let's see, the select board approved some funding Monday night for through their revenue replacement ARPA funds, which are not through the county. So they approved funding for the DPW II infiltration and inflow for $125,000 to supplement our capital request this past spring. So that'll go into our II fund we've completed a study. We're waiting for the final report and then to offer recommendations for design and mitigation for the II. So they also approved some funding for some asset management programs. So we're looking forward to possibly updating our pavement management as well as other assets that will work together with the select board and in our engineering division to prioritize for asset management. That was also approved through the revenue replacement ARPA fund. That's about it for ARPA. So I can is that any questions on those?
No.
All right, moving forward, we have personnel vacancies. We have a few new hires we're working on. So we hired Kevin Perry as a water pollution control operator. And he's slated to start on August 12th. I mentioned earlier, Antonio Neves as assistant water and sewer superintendent. He's slated to start on August 5th. We did have a recent hire in in the Highway Division, HMEO, Mike Cabral, and so he's been working for a couple weeks or a few weeks, and then we interviewed a couple more candidates for HMEO positions, and we're trying to work with the town administrator, the acting town administrators, and personnel director to bring them in at a higher grade, a higher step than a step one, which is noted in the agreement. I know we've brought some other employees in a higher step through a side letter of agreement. And to bring these two up, they presented it to the select board on Monday night. Unfortunately, I wasn't invited to that meeting to discuss and comment, but the board voted to agree to move forward with the side letter agreement for these applicants, and they didn't vote on it. And it became news to me yesterday that the reason they didn't vote on it was because they didn't have the agreement signed by the union, and there was no union representation at the meeting as well. I don't know if they were invited or didn't show, but they weren't at the meeting either. So I spoke to the union representative yesterday, and he is working on it. He said, I don't want to hold this up, so I will sign the agreement and get that over tomorrow. So we should receive that today. In the meantime, the personnel director extended offer to the two applicants, rather than starting them at a higher step, starting them as a step one and increasing them to a step 4 after the select board meeting date of August 12th. I didn't really agree with this offer, but one of the candidates did accept the offer. The other candidate said that he would have to speak with his family and get back, I believe, today. So hopefully that works out. And as soon as I receive that signed agreement, or personnel receive that signed agreement, I'll try to get that moving. Get these guys at a higher step. So I have asked for this offer to go out as soon as possible so we can get these guys in, get them with all the processes that are required to have an HMEO / CDL driver employed with the town, and physical, drug testing, everything. So to get that process moving, and they extended the step 1 offer, which I didn't agree with, but it's been done, and hopefully we can move forward and get these guys in.
Okay, anything else on personnel, Tim?
Currently, no. Nope.
I've got a question.
Oh, I can say that we do have one laborer who is taking the incentive program to obtain a CDL. He's working on that process now, and hopefully soon he's going for his CDL and his hoisting. So we may be able to bring him into an HMEO or even an SMEO position, because we have vacancies in both. So that's a great opportunity for him as well as us.
Yeah, and I like the idea of people exercising that option and being an example to others to do the same.
Absolutely.
So you get some advancement internally and some professional growth.
Correct.
Okay. Tim, I have a question. I'm going to loop back to the business about evaluating a comprehensive wastewater management plan. And have we heard anything from Serped on the work we asked them to complete in June?
No, I was planning on reaching out this week. I've been a little crazy week, but I will be reaching out to them. We also had a meeting yesterday with a consultant and also Steve Bliven, resident in town. He came out for the tour of the wastewater treatment facility and had some questions, and we were talking about the Serped process as well. So I'd like to reach out, and I know one of the acting town administrators had reached out to Serped and asked them to provide me with some timelines and data. I haven't received anything yet, but.
No, wait a minute. Excuse me. We told them when we needed it.
Yes.
To have them come back and say, well, when do you really need it? That's not acceptable. I'm sorry. Maybe I've had too much coffee this morning.
I don't
But-
think they said that, but I think the town administrator reached out to them and said, and asked them to contact me directly with the data.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I thought the department should hire directly someone to do it rather than rely on Serped. I have been underwhelmed by Serped's ability to get work done in a timely manner and in a way that really supports the need for the work. And anyway, I'll stop there. So you'll report back to us about what you get back from Serped?
Yeah, yes, I'll reach out until, as soon as we get off this meeting.
All right. I did forget to give some feedback. There was a water quality meeting held a few days ago, and due to a noticing issue, I walked in late, which I apologize to you, Tim, and to fellow board members for that. But there seems to be a feeling that a comprehensive evaluation townwide needs to happen to evaluate water quality and what needs to be done to improve and protect water quality in the town. And one option being discussed was to increase the effort at a watershed basis. Is that fair, Tim?
Yes,
Okay. And that one of the ways to get started was to perform sampling in the watersheds. It seems to me that since this department is moving forward with a comprehensive wastewater treatment plan, that to have a parallel process dealing with water quality is possibly inefficient and confusing to the public. And I suggested that there be some consideration of combining those efforts. I've heard back that, oh, well, the state has guidelines for two different things, and the state might not support trying to combine a watershed approach as a portion of a comprehensive wastewater treatment plan. And I think it would be worthwhile having a conversation with the state about how a single water quality effort in the town of Dartmouth might move forward with their support and potentially grant monies. Because it's hard for me to imagine that a report or effort like a comprehensive wastewater management plan that does more than is required would be a problem. But that's my own opinion. Anyway, I just want to report that to my fellow board members and indicate that the conversation is continuing. Tim, do you have anything to add to that? Am I missing something here?
no, I think you hit it on the head.
And to be a little bit more clear, I think if we're going to develop a comprehensive wastewater management plan, no matter what its scope, that the Public Works Department is the lead, but that the Health Department and the Waterways Commission are both need to be closely involved. And then at another level, the Planning Department. But that the Waterways Commission, I think because everything, if you will, flows downhill, the good stuff and the bad stuff, I think they do need to be part of the process because they have an interest in recreation and also in shellfish. And those are two things that do in fact rely pretty heavily on good water quality. So anyway, I'm expressing my opinion on these things. I'm just letting you guys know. And hopefully I'll get invited to the next meeting and we'll show up on time. Tim, anything else on that?
No, nope.
And you're continuing to have discussions with possible contractors to develop a comprehensive wastewater management plan?
Yes. Yep.
When do you think we might, at the board level, have a conversation about what that scope looks like and who the contenders are?
Yeah, we're working on it now, so hopefully, sometime in August, we can have that
And
ready.
and we have
ready to discuss.
at least $200,000 to start that this year, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right, Ron, any questions?
No, I'm just, how would you combine that scope is my only thought. I mean, if you wastewater versus,
Home.
Yeah, I guess
Watershed.
I'm taking a broad view of the definition of wastewater to include stormwater.
yeah,
And that, if you needed to treat watersheds independently, they could be either an appendix or some other relationship to the comprehensive wastewater management plan.
Mhm.
But I think it would be, since we're facing possible regulations on septic systems and we're looking to increase the number of connections. And also, I think because we may find a need to upgrade our discharge system, that
Mhm.
it would be smart to include a watershed discussion, at least at some level.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Oh, that can come with discussions when we start looking at, how can we do that and what would it
Yeah.
involve, what would it cost, all that.
yeah, exactly. And it may very well be that the enterprise fund bears much of the cost for the comprehensive wastewater management plan, but that grants or other funding sources outside the enterprise fund are used as an argument for the plan should be broader than just collection and wastewater treatment. So,
I know you got upset with Serped. What is it that we're asking Serped to do for us again? I lost that a little bit.
So they're looking to study the population growth forecast. So they're working with
Okay. All
they're
right.
working with Donahue
Yeah.
Institute to for that study. And we had asked for the end of June for them to have the data. And
And it's the end of July,
it's, yeah, correct.
and their comment was,
Just they're working on expediting.
working on it. We don't have it.
Yeah, they're working on expediting it and might have to. I think they had some questions early on like scenario development, like what is the town proposing for development? Because I know the planning department is looking at creating a zoning for multi-residential housing, but that's not approved yet, and we haven't seen any plan on that. So that's a big question. Where is that plan to be positioned? So that adds growth potential in those
yeah.
areas.
Excuse me, that came up with their Mass Waterworks meeting the other day also, because about water management permit, and they want to make all these housing developments that we may not have the water supply to handle these, all this building going on, so. So we're all fighting for the same thing in Massachusetts, but, we want people to have housing, but unfortunately, when they cut back on our water management act permit, we don't have the water available to give to the households, so.
Yeah, Tim, if I forget to raise this issue in the future, rather than getting caught up in a chicken and egg, you know, where is your housing plan? How can we do a population analysis without a housing plan?
Mhm.
And, you know, running into delays
Yeah.
on a project that really does need to keep moving forward.
Mhm.
That is upgrading our wastewater treatment capacity. I think it's a common approach to develop a reasonable worst case analysis
Correct.
and not get bogged down on exactly where or how much, but rather say, we think generally so many more people, roughly these areas, okay? And make it a worst case, but a reasonable worst case.
And I believe they're currently are concurrently working on a housing plan as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, and we can fine tune, you know, as we get into the nuts and bolts of what we're gonna modify. But right now, we need something to get started with.
Absolutely.
So, all right, anything else, Tim?
Nope.
Ron, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, well, 2.5 hours, that's quite a meeting for volunteers. I appreciate everybody hanging in there.
And what I'll do is I'll put that on, old business or for discussion, as well for next meeting as well.
Yeah, I think that would
Yeah.
be smart.
Yeah.
All right, thank you much, and
welcome.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. LaBelle moves to adjourn the meetings. The chair seconds the motion. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you
Have a
all for
good-
your time.